Welcome to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon. This is Brooke Steneck, and I've wanted to have this kind of podcast conversation with her for quite a long while, but when she was working incredibly hard in the fitness industry here in Connecticut, she really didn't have much time on her to do anything other than build these clubs that she worked for. Tremendously challenging work. Well, the good news is she's not doing that anymore, and she actually has a manageable job, even though it's national in scope, maybe international in scope, much different than almost anything she's ever done that I know of. But she sounds poised, confident, happy, looking forward in the 4 months that she's been with this company to lots more learning, lots more change of the good sort, a lot more growth. So this is a happy story, and I'm glad to make it the first podcast I brought back in a while I was working pretty hard, very hard actually, on fulfilling Peter Vale's manuscript, putting in some of my own thoughts and words, and that's coming along very well. And it will be available digitally quite soon. So I'm back to podcasting, and here is the reason why. Brooke Steneck. Well, folks, it's been a while since I have recorded a conversation with anyone, because I took a bit of a hiatus, as I reported in my last commentary about sudden ends and positive beginnings, when the young man who helped me get through the first 2.5 years of podcasting with all of behind the scenes production work has moved on to complete his MFA, and I cheered him on, as I've done for everyone who's been a student in my life, and Anthony sure was. But now, and that I'm figuring that back of the scenes kind of thing out, I want to have some conversations again with people who are tremendously impressive and practitioners of whatever they care to practice. And that's the key to this whole series. And so Brooke Steneck has come aboard to have this conversation. And I really thank you, Brooke, for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Very honored.
It's mutual. Brooke was a Fearon-Duran scholar. When she hit that peak in her senior year at Central Connecticut State University, I guess after that, Brooke, anything else you achieve in life, will never compare, right?
It didn't really, nothing really else matters from that point on. I peaked.
You peaked? No, as a matter of fact, it was more like a boost. Speaking of shots in the arm lately, and I felt for the several folks that have had this recognition from Joe DeFeo, Duran, and for me, that I already saw something happening, something moving toward an intentional excellence of any sort. But you weren't one in my introductory management class who would simply phone it in. There's a lot to write, a lot of questions asked, a lot of things happening in the classroom, sometimes 2 or 3 things at the same time. And I remember very clearly that you were not fazed. Do you remember that, or am I just making it up?
No, I do remember that. And your classes and the things that you made us do were actually the most enjoyable for me, even though it at some points was the most amount of work that I was doing, and I'd have to go home, or at the dorm, I was there for half a semester. I didn't really like dorm life, but I would have to come home and write a lot. And it was a challenge, but it really made me connect to myself and find my internal motivators and who I wanted to be. So it was probably, the numerous classes that I took with you changed me the most as a person and as a student and as a professional, and brought me to where I am today. So I am very grateful that I stumbled upon intro to management way back when. That was, 2011, 2012.
It was around then.
So 10 years ago. Crazy. Yeah.
And that course, Introduction to Management, it was like one of the, oh God, I've got to take this course in order to fulfill my requirements for the business school. And I chose to teach it for just the very reason that I wanted, in quotes, kids who thought, oh God, well, at least it's on Tuesdays and Thursdays at a time that I don't have to get up early. So I made them 8 o'clock class, perverse as I was. But my point is that I wanted them to stumble just like you did. Come in, ask for a syllabus. Well, it's all online. Ask for set there ready to take a lecture. No, I don't lecture. I present hopefully interesting ideas, and we have conversations about it. And also, by the way, you're in teams. You remember that, your teams?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't remember faces so much, but I do remember the teams now that you bring it up. Yeah.
Yeah. And that gave you a group to be with every week for the rest of the 15 weeks. Now, this whole conversation isn't just about that, but in a way it is, because here's an experiment that Peter Vale and I have. I keep it going. We both saw in our former students something. That's something that I just mentioned earlier in this conversation that gave us an idea that no matter where he or she would be along the trajectory of their practice life, we would still see that something emerging. And everyone gets to define what that something is. But in your case, if people were listening to what you just said, it's in the tone. Yes, I do remember that. Yes, I had to work hard at it. Yes, but it sounds like you embraced that as an opportunity to get some value out of your tuition that you were paying and the time you were putting into it. So over time, we connected a couple of times as you were making some career choices. And then most recently, geez, it's been over a year though, you were opening up the marketing side of a fitness club right near campus. And I was unfit, I lack fitness. Let's put it that way. I'm unfit. That's not quite the right word. And that's when we reconnected. But since then, you've made some changes. That club had to shut down during the worst part of the pandemic.
Yep.
So would you just catch me up for the listeners as well as me on what transpired? Because let me put it this way. You had momentum still, you had spirit still, you were recruiting and bringing in a really impressive team of market people who snagged me and made me feel comfortable and got my money. And in that it was a pretty aggressive marketing organization, the club that you work for, and they were spreading out, opening clubs, spending a lot of money, and it was a beautifully done facility. But then you weren't there anymore because what happened? And you don't have to talk in any detail about the various places you've gone, but it was like a rock skip after that for you for a while, wasn't it?
Yeah. And actually, timing was kind of on my side because everybody was under the impression that I did leave that company because of the pandemic, but I actually put in my resignation almost 2 weeks to the day that Connecticut shut down as a whole due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I was on my way out. I had another position lined up with a private fitness studio. At that point in time, I felt like I maxed out my career where I was at, even though I had a great run. I had a great team. I loved what I did there. I was very proud of my accomplishments. But there was just something that was at the pit of my soul where I realized it's time for me to move on, and I had to move on. And part of that was, my passion wasn't there anymore. I wasn't motivated to be at work. So I made the really hard decision to move on. So gave my 2 weeks, fast forward 2 weeks. Now I'm completely out of a job because I was leaving the fitness industry to go into another fitness studio, but they were also out. Because of the pandemic. At that fitness studio, I was set to open a new location as well. But with the break that the owners had to take, and being shut down for three full months, they lost the space that they were going to open. So they brought me in as a lower level, assistant manager and pretty much a right-hand man to one of the studio managers that they already had. And I was there, I started back in June. I was there until the next March. Realized that it wasn't a good fit for me either. Studio manager in that space was the highest that you could be. And I'm a person that's motivated by what's the next step? What can I do next? And how can I excel and propel my career? And it's not something that was feasible in that company. So then I moved over to retail sales, still in the fitness industry. And I was all in the fitness industry. Yep. And after I was in my position, I was selling fitness equipment, high tech fitness equipment. And the role that I interviewed for and I got, there was a pathway there that wasn't really delivered. And after being there for 3 months, and I had to go back and work at the original gym that I was hired at as a part-time, just front desk to make ends meet.
Oh, wow. That had to be tough.
It was very tough. And after 90 days, I was working 7 days a week. It was very tough. But I realized, okay, I can't do this long term. I can't, this is not sustainable. I can't excel where I want to be if I have to work 2 jobs. So unfortunately, I had to give both of those up, which leads me to my current role, which is completely out of the fitness industry. And now I'm a recruiter in the consumer tech vertical for Kforce, which is a great professional staffing solutions company. And it's been amazing. I've been here since June, even though every day feels like my first day because there's so much to learn. Yeah. Long story long, I guess.
No, it's a wonderful.
That's where I've been.
It's a wonderful story, and only this whole period we discussed would, for some people, was when they were just sitting around waiting to be able to go outdoors again, and for you, it was very commendably that you decided you wanted to keep paying your bills, and you were willing to do what it took to keep paying your bills. You didn't want to just fall on hard times, even though the times were hard. And that's one of the things in our thinking about practice, that you have to changing circumstances, and some of them are not all that great, and some of them turn out to be much better than you hoped. And then there's some in between that look better. In the case of the near last job, where it looked like this time you were going to have a chance to grow in that particular organization, and then it didn't turn out that way. Now, what I picked up on, and I hope everyone else did, is the sound of Brooke Steneck talking about her current role, because whoa, the energy is there, and particularly love the phrase, I look forward to every day because there's so much more new to learn. And that's been a huge part of our thoughts on practice. Now, is that because you're in now out of the fitness world, which you could draw on constantly from your, really extensive amount of professional and personal knowledge of the fitness world? Is it partly because when you started out in the Kforce world, that not as much of your, so let's call hardwired knowledge, worked right away there, and you kind of had to open up a new head for that, or a little bit of both?
It's definitely a little bit of both. During my career in the fitness industry, I was heavily devoted to sales and, like you said, marketing. And, I was a sales manager for 6 years in my career, where I had to recruit new members, and that's all I was responsible for. So in a way it's connected. I'm still in the business of people, but instead of selling them, a gym membership or fitness, I'm selling people to our end client or getting people jobs. So it's still really great because I'm connected with people and I love speaking with people, and I'm still making outbound calls every day and learning about different lifestyles and cultures. And I sit on the East Coast, but I actually recruit over on the West Coast. So it's really great. I get to talk to people all over the country, which is really awesome. But then there's things that, I was not a techie person before. I could never edit this podcast.
No, you didn't. You
send
didn't.
It out for you.
Will you edit this for me? No, but I was thinking one thing that definitely would be different. All the roles you described up until this one were largely local in the sense that your communication networks were pretty much bound to the Connecticut region. And in order then for you to do the work that you're now doing, you had to master, this technology that we're on now, which is relatively simple, but it's not so simple when you're trying to use it to get engaged with people and create some kind of a relationship long enough so that they will say, oh yeah, no, that sounds, you're selling it a different way, I guess. What other technical challenges did you face when you came on board for this particular role?
Yeah, just learning the consumer tech vertical is still, it's a challenge every day. And I had no idea about coding languages and what people do on a day-to-day basis, but so that was probably one of the biggest challenges coming in, but also, like you said, conveying my message over the phone. I had a lot of over the phone experience, but it was in the Connecticut region and that was it. And people on the East Coast were go, go, go. So if if we get people on the phone, especially in the sales industry up here in the Northeast, we talk and talk and talk and talk, but we really have to listen in the recruiting industry. Which was another learning curve for me. But yeah,
listening.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Not talking so much, not leading somebody to the answer, but rather asking them the questions to get the answer out of them, which was huge. But, going back to, the tech, it was tough, but that's stuff that you can learn, which, I was told pretty early in the interview stage. I interviewed 5 or 6 times with the company. So it wasn't an easy, shoe in for me to get into Kforce. But with that, my interview experience, I got to meet a lot of professionals in the industry and that have been in the industry for, over 10 years. So it was really great to hear from them and learn about the company and how supportive they are with their employees.
Help us understand essentially what Kforce does. You mentioned you're in the business of helping people find jobs. How does that work? You were just explain that a little bit. So
yeah, sure.
People can Google it. They can see it online, but I think if you.
Yeah. And so my perception of what recruiting is actually the complete opposite of what it actually was. So I started my interview journey kind of backwards. My expectations were a little backwards. So, and most people, they think that, you go to a recruiter. So Doc, if you need a job, you come to me as a recruiter. I'm going to source and I'm going to look for different jobs that match your skill set. And then I get you a job. It's the other way. So our client, so yes, right. So my mind was blown. I was I don't know if I can do this. So our clients are actually the businesses or the corporations that are hiring. So for instance, I'm aligned with the Amazon team. Amazon releases a role to us and then we source the candidates, interview the candidates, screen them, put their profiles together, send them over to Amazon with the hopes of getting them an interview. So it is backwards from the mass conception of what recruiting is, but it makes a whole lot more sense to do it the way that it's done. Oh
yeah. Well, I think for everyone concerned, particularly for your role, I'm imagining that having the specs, pretty well laid out from what Amazon wants or any other business client your company may have, they say this is the role and it's pretty well specced out. So that gives you a lot more of a target when you are looking at the pool out there and looking for matches. Now, tell us a little bit about how do you find that people in that pool? How do you reach them?
Right. So it's all about networking and making connections, which, we definitely did in not only your classes, but the other classes that I was in at Central. So when they tell you to network, it's not a facade network. Definitely do
No.
it. Update your LinkedIn. So we source through different platforms like LinkedIn or Dice, Career Builder, Indeed. And we create what we call Boolean strings. And that's how we narrow folks down by their tenure, their location, what skills they have, buzzwords on their resume. And then it's a lot of outbound messaging, calls, emails, follow-ups to get them on the phone and make an appointment with you to talk about their background.
Now, back in the day, I mean, about 2 years ago, people apparently from the trends that I've been watching were saying, well, I'm okay. I'm employed. I'm pretty well set. And then we went through the pandemic. A lot of people got dislodged, including you. And so you would think that there'd be lots of people hungry to resume work on the other side of this of the spectrum. But here's what I also am picking up, that the people have learned a lot during the time that they weren't working, as I believe you have, about what really makes them tick, what makes their life worth living. And it may not be, just grabbing the first offer that comes across their phone or their email, that they may be wanting more. Did you see that at all? And if so,
Definitely.
What's that like?
Yeah. And the market is super crazy competitive right now. It's very hot, especially in the tech world. So the biggest thing that we focus on, and Kforce is a huge advocate of this, and one of the reasons why I think we're the best talent solutions company, at least in the United States, is we really make it a point to find people's motivators. So, if they are open on LinkedIn to new roles, why are you looking for a new role? What's going on at your current role that you aren't fond of? What could they have done differently to keep you on board? But also, some people, they realize that family time is really important to them, or if they get to work from home, they don't have to have the extra expense of childcare, or, their parents can help them out if they can be at home together with their kids. So finding those external motivators too, not just in what matters to them professionally and their professional growth, but also what matters to them outside of work too, and how it relates to their current situation, and then what we can help them get into is super important. And I'm glad that I went through my experience, because I was working in the fitness industry. You don't stop. I describe it as a rock and roll lifestyle.
I actually used to worry about you because, I would come to the club fairly frequently, and you look pretty lovely, but tired. And I'm thinking, this doesn't make sense. This is happy place. This is fitness. Everyone. But you were working a lot of hours because you were sometimes pushed into the role of, kind of being the officer of the day and some of those things. And you did make it clear to me when I kept trying to chase you to get one of these podcast conversations. I don't even have it. I don't have an hour. You were really, but that's shows you something about yourself. You have an enormous work ethic. And I suspect by now you've had to learn how to kind of put that into perspective, because, now folks, she's engaged. She's engaged and her life is going well. So you don't want to be working 24/7, do you?
No. And it was, getting out of my original position that you mentioned, where I looked tired. I was tired. I was working a lot, 72 plus hours a week. And it really was a rock and roll lifestyle, which I enjoyed. And probably up until the year before you realize that I looked like that, I was doing great and I loved it. And then it all kind of caught up to me, and I was getting older, and, I met my boyfriend at the time, who's now my fiance, and it, life catches up. It really does put things into perspective. I'm still a hustler. I love to work, but now I do it from 8 to 5. And when 5 o'clock hits, I can turn my computer off and I don't have to worry about work for the rest of the day, which is another reason why I love the place where I'm at. And on top of that, I can turn my computer off and I'm already home, so I don't have to commute, which is also great.
Yeah. It's easy. It's easier on everything. But what about those California hours? You don't you have to sometimes be working at night like we are right now?
Sometimes, not frequently though. My team, my director and my manager, they were really great. And through the interview process, I felt pretty empowered, which was also very attractive, coming into a new company, because they asked me, you're going to be on the East Coast. We're recruiting you for this company that's in the greater Seattle area. You're going to be talking to people in California. Where do you feel like you can be successful working East Coast hours? And by them pitching it to me like that, I was like, it's a challenge. I'm up for it. But I also want to get out at 5:00. So yes, I will do whatever I possibly can to make it work. And I've been super successful so far. There are times where it's one or two off, calls that I have to do. Thursday last week I worked till 6:30, but it's really not that big of a deal. So I'm very fortunate for the flexibility, and also the team that I have behind me, knowing that if I do have to hop off at 5:00 my time and I have a scheduled call or a candidate that needs to call me outside of my working hours, that they'll pick up the slack for me. So far, so good. I've been here for a little over 4 months now. If I'm doing the math right, 5 months. So
now you mentioned a team, and
yes.
You've always, as far as I know about what you did previously, you always worked with teams. You had your own skill set and specialty, and you had also ability to see the whole. But now there's a team that's doing something quite remarkable, in that you are in. I assume you're recruiting largely for people for that particular client who will be in the technology side working. Would be customer relations, that kind of thing. What specific kinds of roles are you recruiting for?
Yeah. So me personally, I kind of bounce back and forth between functional and the technical side of things. So technical roles, I'm heavily aligned to quality assurance or software development, technical program managers, project managers. And then on the functional side, I've also supported accounting, financial services, financial analysts. Sometimes business analysts are thrown in there, but those are the main roles that I've seen so far. We have two other recruiters on my team. One is heavily aligned with the functional side. The other is heavily aligned with the technical side. So, right now is kind of my learning. I'm in my pathway now to find what my groove is. So whether I'm better and more focused and motivated by the tech side, or if, the functional side works out better for me. So I get to do a little bit of both.
You get a little tickle for one or the other right now, or are you just trying to keep an open mind?
It's funny,
you could be an integrator, you could be both.
Yeah, I enjoy both. I really love and enjoy the tech side just because it's so new to me, and I learn something new every day just by talking to the candidates that I speak with. I did take finance courses and accounting courses. So to me, it's part of my past. Okay. It's business, it's numbers. All right. But the tech side is really cool. We get to work, with Amazon and some NDA projects that they're hiring for. So it's really cool and fascinating and innovative with the emerging technologies and the different, projects that we get to support. So I like the tech side a little better.
I can see it. Now, what do you pick it when you have a successful hire? You brought someone to the gate, they came through, and eventually there was a hire. Is there a particular quality that you think now you're seeing a pattern in those people who make it all the way through? And I mean more of a personal quality than just their acumen for zeros and ones and all the other things that
definitely. So and this goes kind of for my team too, but we look for people with good personalities. When we're sending somebody in for an interview, they're representing not only themselves, because it's going to be their name on the paycheck, but also Kforce too, and our personal reputation. The hiring managers know where the candidate comes from. So a good personable personality, communication skills is the number one thing that I look for. Technical skills can be taught. And even if somebody is junior with their technical skills and they have a great personality and, they persevere and they show that they're eager and willing to learn, I feel like that's the most important quality that I look for.
And some of those kinds of folks have made it all the way through. Do you get any feedback yet? It's only been 4 months in terms of how the hire side actually happens.
Yeah, I have 4 placements so far. My first placement, she's great. Like I could call her up and talk to her on the phone like we're friends, which is
that's
awesome.
A good sign. That's a good,
yes.
good sign for K-Force too.
Yeah,
She probably is grateful for your organization.
Yeah. So we've had good feedback there. And then my 3 other placements, they're relatively new. They're not even a month in yet.
Okay.
But I do consultant care calls, so they've had good experience so far. We'll get our surveys back because we do have surveys the first 30, 60, 90 days of their project, and then the last 90, 60, 30 days of the project too. So those haven't come in yet, but we'll see the results. I'm excited to see.
Now, one of the basic ways of thinking, or the basic way of thinking, and Peter and I laid out in the podcast as well as in the book that I'm finishing with his last words, is that results is hugely important to anyone who's committed to practice. You saw it in the fitness world. Certainly, people set their fitness goals. You saw how those who quit versus those who kept on and achieved the results, and the results themselves then became motivators for going for higher goals. It's a wonderful thing to watch, and it's a wonderful thing to experience. But in your case, it seems to me that you have a position now where a really, really effective hire on behalf of your company for your client is an important result for you. How does it feel like that first person who came through and got hired?
Oh, I feel like I'm her biggest cheerleader. I was so happy when she got through the interview. She was happy with the team. They were happy with her. It was amazing. On the flip side too, I recently had a candidate who went through the interview. She got an offer. But she also had a competing offer. Like I said, the market is really hot. So it's something that we come across more frequently than not at this point in time. But her and I had such a good relationship that, she broke the news to me that she was taking the other offer. But in hindsight, I think it was the most logical step for her career. And I supported her 1,000%. There was no hard feelings, and she's going to start at the end of this week. So I emailed her this morning and asked her how she was feeling. It's coming up, and she was like, "I'm so happy that you're so supportive." And that's the networking piece. You support good people, it'll come back to you. She's on a 6-month contract. Hopefully she comes back to me after, but
in the meantime, she's going to tell some other people in her network, hey, you know what? This company has real human beings who really are. And when I could have not given her a win. Instead, she was very supportive and very kind. Now, that's the kind of message that'll expand your reputation very, very well and provide you some, not some, because I know they're not necessarily coming directly to you for the next job, are they? But you know that they're out there. Let's say that she finds 5 other people similar to her in personality and all the rest. Is there a way that they can become sort of in your network, on your radar screen, if you will?
Yeah. So we at K-Force, we do have a referral program, which I did talk her through that specific candidate. So if you have a referral, you refer them to K-Force. If we place them in a role, you get a monetary incentive for that. But say she had, 5 or 6 different people that I couldn't place right now, or I didn't have a role to get them submitted. I could keep them in my pipeline. And then if something was the right fit, I could reach out. We can also market candidates to either our client. So say I'm not aligned with a product manager role. At this time, we don't have anything open, but I could market a great candidate over to my account manager. Now, our account manager, he's on Team K-Force. He's a K-Force employee, but he holds the relationship between K-Force and Amazon. Yeah. So he could market a certain candidate either to a hiring manager that he's close to, or he sends that candidate over to that hiring manager. If they don't have something, then they could go into their network, Or if I think that, say, X candidate's a better fit for Nike's culture, I could also send he or she over to Nike, and they could also help her get placed too. So it is a huge network. I've been in sales for a really long time. I've been part of teams for a really long time, but the camaraderie and the amount of teamwork that goes into it, even though there's less team success and more individual success than what I've been experienced with in the past. But the way that people come together and support each other and help each other be successful here, it still shocks me.
And it's all virtual, right? So far?
It's all virtual. Yeah. So my whole team sits either in the greater Seattle area, or our account manager, he's out in Oregon. And I'm the only one out here on the East Coast. We do have, I'm aligned a little bit with Microsoft. So we have the same director. So I meet with the Microsoft team daily as well. I have some folks in Tampa and down south, but I'm the only New Englander on our team.
Is K-Force, does it have any place where they could say, this is our headquarters, or is it also quite virtual?
So before they were all on site. K-Force has over 60 locations nationwide. Mm-hmm. So, the Seattle team, they do have a building, a standing building in Seattle that they used to meet at. With the pandemic, though, everybody, pretty much got sent home, and they've been living in the virtual world since. Originally, their headquarters were in Tampa. Right before I joined the team, or maybe right after. So I joined late June. They sold the building, but they are planning on opening a new headquarters, but it's going to be more of a hybrid. So the building's there and the space is there for you to go and to meet clients or coworkers or have coffee chats. But we'll still have this virtual world too, which is really great.
And that being the East Coast, and particularly New England, that gives you a bit of stability, doesn't it? I mean, you're in a strategic place and role, and yet you don't have to think, oh, gee, I have to pick up and move here. I may have to pick up and move out there, which was the way back when you were a student. It was, if you were going to change companies, a really good chance you couldn't stay in Connecticut. And some people didn't want to, but still, it's uprooting. And now you're away from your roots and all the rest. And this has given you the best, to me, listening now, the best of both worlds for you. It's incredibly exciting.
Yeah,
absolutely. The companies that you're helping find talent, which, by the way, I think is the top priority for these companies that want to continue and look really good in the market, in the stock market and everywhere else. That's a big role. And they're really interesting companies, very dynamic, always changing. And a lot of them now, even Amazon, guess what? It's middle-aged or a little older now. It's been around for 20 plus years. And some of the folks that are in roles there are moving up, retiring, changing. And so there's an opening now for the new generations that I'm not just concentrating on, but they're there. And they're the ones who, particularly in the technology side, are most likely to be as excited about being in the emerging side of business as you are. So it's all looking damn good.
It is. It really is. If you told me, on graduation day that one day I'd be working from my sister's old bedroom, recruiting quality assurance technicians for Amazon, I would say you're out of your mind. But it's the world that we live in right now. And it's really great because the opportunities really are endless. And, the kids graduating college now, the world is their oyster. They have so much potential, so much opportunity, and they don't have to have that mind shift of, oh, if I want this role, I have to move. Especially with the more well-established enterprise level companies, because they've mastered this craft. At my first day, I was set up with my laptop. I have another desktop. I have my keyboard. I had everything ready to go for my first day. And I couldn't believe that it was a little over 1 year that we were living in this environment, and they had everything figured out. So it's only going to get better and less seamless going forward.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. Now, I have to tell you, you must not remember, right after class one day, I said, Brooke, this is what you're going to be doing 10 years from now.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that day.
You're going to be in your sister's old bedroom. You're going to be, gee whiz, I always say, how soon you forget the wisdom of your old professor.
I know, Doc, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I mentioned at the beginning of this, and we are down to our last few minutes, but I mentioned at the beginning that I had a bit of a hiatus, particularly so I could get way ahead on, and I have gotten way ahead on working through Peter's original manuscript, adding my own narrative to his conjectures about practice. And it's been a great use of the months since I have not recorded a new podcast. But now you got me all excited because I want people to hear this. I want them to know you. I want them to hear the tone that I mentioned at the beginning of this, because I recall very nice that you had two persona when you were my student. One, you were quiet. I knew you were listening, but I'd see when you were writing, because that's what we did. We wrote continuously online. Everyone could read that there's a lot going on there. But then we'd start some of the team exercises, some of my little silly exercises, and the competitive Brooke would come roaring up.
Yeah.
You lit up. I mean, like, who the hell is this?
We had, I know you said we're down to our last few minutes, but I do have a funny story for you. We have, we do team building exercises, just like we did in class. We do that every day during our board update. Even though we're virtual, we still do it. And sometimes we play Kahoot. I don't know if you're familiar, but people listening might. And everybody logs in. It's online. It's like a quiz game. You can either make your own quiz or have other quizzes. And we did our first one. I was like, not even 90 days in, but my team knew me. We meet every day, but I was more quiet and reserved, and I was listening and I was learning a lot. And then we played Kahoot, and I made sure I came in first. I was like, I am not losing this. And everybody was like, where is this girl coming from? And I'm like, yeah, I'm super competitive. I really am. So every time we play Kahoot, we get into it now.
Well, you see, you haven't changed a bit, but I know, and I'm the one who's saying we don't have many minutes, but I have to do one more reminiscence for the benefit of our listeners. While Brooke was my student, and afterwards, after she graduated, you were a really competitive equestrian.
Oh yeah.
You had a horse, and you competed at least nationally, didn't you?
Yeah. So I showed on the AQHA circuit, and I showed at the highest level that you can on that circuit and in the United States. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, folks, Central Connecticut, Little New Britain, a bunch of all of us who had to work for a living. And that's why I love the students. Everyone worked hard, constantly worked. But at the same time, out pops this equestrian who you would more expect to be at some posh school.
Right. Yeah.
That only, like we had a school right here in Connecticut where the students could bring their own horses and put them in barns. You remember down the road here in Simsbury. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly there's this magnificent equestrian. You showed me pictures of the horse and so you've changed, but you haven't changed. I think that's my take on all this.
Yeah, not a lot has changed. Now that I look back, really not a lot. Yeah. Been through a lot, but I've not changed. No.
But you're winning results for deserving candidates for these very discerning companies. They're not going to just hire anyone. They have you and your team doing a lot of the finding, screening, refining, and sending on the ones who are most likely to succeed in their companies. That's a great role. I see you in this role. Here I am telling you your future again, just like I did 10 years.
Let me write it down.
I see you this time. No rock skips. I see you with this company a long time.
I hope
long enough so that you can settle the other aspects of your life. you may not have to live for the rest of your life in your sister's old bedroom. You may actually have a house with your own home office and a wonderful.
That's the next goal. Yes.
And a wonderful husband and a dog.
Yep. Maybe a horse down the road. Maybe.
Yes. Right. So thank you. This has been delightful. And you have motivated me to get back on the mic and back out, reaching out and lining up some more wonderful folks. But you're one of the best.
Oh, thank you, Doc. You too. I could say this with full confidence, I would not be where I am without you. Of course, Fear on Duran Scholar, but also that Management 101 class. It really changed my life. It really did. It's so corny to say, but, I 1,000% believe that I want to be the person, the graduate, the professional that I am without you and your guidance. So thank you for everything.
Wow. I appreciate it. If you'd like to hear more, listen in on Spotify, Automatic, and Apple Podcasts, or go to inactionresearch.com/podcast-page. And if you'd like to learn more about social inaction and the nature of practice, head over to inactionresearch.com for more information. Thank you for supporting this show. We look forward to hearing from you soon.